Caddie Woodlawn by Carol Ryebrink. Caddie's wandering feet took her upstairs to the attic. Here were old boxes from Boston and a beautiful round-top trunk, lined with colored paper, with pictures of smiling children decorating the various compartments. And on a low shelf was a row of clocks, waiting for Father's expert hand to mend them. The attic was drafty, but near the end of the stairs a brick chimney came up from the kitchen, and there it was, warm. Caddy drew some of the boxes over to the chimney and sat with her back against it while she looked through them. Most of the things she had seen often enough. There were too many people in the family to allow old things to accumulate, unused. Only two things which she found puzzled and surprised Caddy. She found them in the bottom of one of the boxes, and she knew that she had never seen them before. They were a pair of little red breeches and a pair of small wooden soled clogs. Surely they had never belonged either to Warren or to Tom. For some time they puzzled and excited her. Then she put them neatly away in the box, resolved to ask Mother about them as soon as she went downstairs. Now she turned her attention to the clocks. They had been at the back of her mind all the time. She had been reserving them as a sort of final treat, as she often did with the things that she liked best. She picked them up one by one and shook them to see if they would start ticking. Among the others stood the circuit rider's clock. Caddy remembered when he had said it was the face of a dead friend. Surely it would soon be time for the circuit rider to return, and Father had not yet started work upon the clock. How dreadful it would be if the circuit rider should return and find his clock unmended. Caddy turned the clock thoughtfully in her hands. She had seen Father mend so many of them. Of course, they were not all alike inside, but she knew how the little screws came out and how the back came off. And then inside you saw all the fascinating wheels and gimcracks. Why shouldn't she mend it herself? She was sure that she could. She sat down with her back against the chimney and began to loosen the screws. It was more of a task than she had supposed, but Father's tools were there on the shelf, and she found a screwdriver of just the size she needed. The back came off, revealing the wheels and springs. Caddy knew enough about clocks to see what was the matter. The circuit rider had wound his clock too tightly, and in some way the spring had caught so that it could not unwind as it should have done. Caddy looked it over carefully. Then she began to loosen the screws which held it in place. She had to loosen several before she found the right ones. Time slipped away unheeded. She was so deeply absorbed in the clock. Her cheeks were flushed and her face bent low over her work, was curtained by her dangling curls. And then, at last, she loosened the right screw. Whiz, bang! The spring flew out with a whir and hit the low ceiling. Screws, cog wheels flew in every direction. It was like an explosion. The circuit rider's clock had suddenly flown to pieces. Caddy uttered a cry of despair and looked wildly about her. What would Father say? There was a low chuckle from the stairway. Caddy followed the sound with startled eyes. Standing on one of the lower steps, so that his eyes were just above the level of the attic floor, stood her father. How long had he been watching her? She had no idea. Father, she wailed, it went to pieces, the circuit rider's clock. Her father leaned against the wall of the staircase and laughed. Caddy had almost never seen him laugh so hard. She herself did not know whether to laugh or cry. Father, she repeated, it went to pieces. Still laughing, Mr. Woodlawn came up the stairs. Let's pick up the pieces, he said. We're going to put the clock back together. Caddy, I've been needing a partner in my clock business for a long time. I don't know why I never thought of you before. A partner, gasped Caddy. She began to race about the attic, picking up screws and springs. A real partner? If you do well, said her father. Clara is too busy with her mother, and Tom hasn't the patience nor the inclination. Yes, Caddy, I believe you'll be my partner. Together they sat on the attic floor and put the circuit rider's clock in order. Mr. Woodlawn explained and demonstrated while Caddy's eager fingers did the work. Together they cleaned and oiled the parts and made the nice adjustments that were required. By the time the work was finished, it was growing dark in the attic. Now take that down and show your mother, Caddy, said Mr. Woodlawn. Together they marched downstairs, one as proud as the other. and Caddie set the circuit rider's clock in the middle of the dining room table. So you mentioned Mr. Tanner's clock, did you, Johnny? Said Mrs. Woodlawn carelessly. No, not this time, said her husband, with a twinkle in his eye. Caddie did it. Caddie did it? Mrs. Woodlawn and Clara and the children who had just come in from school crowded around to see. It runs, marveled Tom, and Warren uttered an admiring golly. The circuit rider's clock no longer looked like the face of a dead friend. It appeared to be very much alive and spoke up with a cheerful tick. Caddie never forgot the lesson she had learned that day in the attic. Wherever she was, all through her long and busy life, clocks ticked about her pleasantly, and if they didn't, she knew the reason why. Number 6. Select all characters that are mentioned in the passage. A. Caddie, B. Tom, C. Warren, D. Walter, E. Josh. Number 7. What lesson does Caddie learn from this experience? Use details from the text to support your answer. Number 8. Which detail best supports the idea that Caddie and her father will be good partners? A. Still laughing, Mr. Woodlawn came up the stairs. B. A partner, gasped Caddie. C. Mr. Woodlawn explained and demonstrated while Caddie's eager fingers did the work. D. Wherever she was, all through her long and busy life, clocks ticked about her pleasantly. Number 9. Select the sentence that best describes what Caddie's father's actions tell the reader about the relationship between Caddie and her father at the end of the story. A. Caddie is afraid of her father. B. Caddie feels underappreciated by her father. C. Caddie admires her father. D. Caddie thinks her father could be doing better with his business. Number 10, Part A. Read the paragraph. And then at last she loosened the right screw. Whiz, bang, the spring flew out with a whir and hit the low ceiling. Screw, cogs, wheels flew in every direction. It was like an explosion. The circuit rider's clock had suddenly flown to pieces. Caddie uttered a cry of despair and looked wildly about her. What would father say? Which word best describes how Caddie is feeling at the end of this paragraph? A. Concerned. B. Annoyed. C. Excited. D. Confused. Part B. Which two details best support your answer to Part A? A. And then at last she loosened the right screw. B. It was like an explosion. C. The circuit rider's clock had suddenly flown to pieces. D. Caddie uttered a cry of despair and looked wildly about her. What would father say?